There are many factors that go into a great performance. It depends on writing, editing, and directing. But in the end, it all comes down to the actor.
You talking to me?
So how does a performer get into character? Spoiler alert, it isn't easy. This is how actors prepare for a role. Before we start rehearsals, subscribe to Studio Binder and enable notifications to check out each of our new videos. Now, get ready for the bright lights. Acting is an ancient art form, and it has evolved a lot over time. In ancient Greece, actors focused on voice projection and physicality, so that their performance could be read by even someone in the back row. During the Shakespearean era, a great actor might have simply referred to someone who could memorize large amounts of dialogue quickly. In the short span of a little over a century, film acting too has changed. In most silent films, performances were larger and more theatrical. About halfway through the 20th century, film acting shifted drastically with the advent of the method, introduced by Konstantin Stanislavski, which emphasized character psychology and emotional truth. For more on the method, check out our video on the subject. Acting today embodies a wide spectrum of technique and preparation.
Every role is different, so what may work for one role may not work for another, and vice versa.
We'll look at the many different approaches the most celebrated actors in film take to embody a character and learn from them in their own words. It all begins with reading the script. Even something as simple as reading a script can require different techniques. Of course, an actor's first task is to understand if the part is right for them. Jesse Eisenberg lays out his criteria.
I'm looking at pretty much two things. One is if the writer thought about the character and that the character could possibly exist outside of the script, as opposed to just being used as a pawn for a story. And then the other thing I look at and wonder is if I could do something with it and bring myself to it.
You have part of my attention. You have the minimum amount. The rest of my attention is back at the offices of Facebook, where my colleagues and I are doing things that no one in this room, including and especially your clients, are intellectually or creatively capable of doing. Did I adequately answer your condescending question?
For some, it's simply reading it over and over again.
Read the script at least, I don't know how many times, 8 times, 10 times, 12 times, whatever it takes. Get to know it.
I just try to read it once a day from the first to the last page. And there's no real strategy. By reading it once a day, I feel like things happen and I come up with thoughts and ideas, and I'll discover something. Even if it's the 55th time I read the script, there's something I'll discover something or come up with an idea for the character or an idea for a specific scene.
Faye Dunaway describes the power of interacting with the script as she reads.
The main thing I do is I sit with my script, and I either make notes or not make notes, and I bring the lines off the page sometimes. And through the hearing the words as I speak them, as I say them quietly alone, and then even sometimes I bring the lines of the other people off the page so that it's as if I'm hearing them speak. Well, sometimes I label scenes, you know. There's like a whole arsenal.
Once the lines are read, they need to be memorized.
To memorize my lines, I write them down next to the line. I just write it out. Something about writing it down helps it stick. Then just going over it, saying it out loud, just the repetition of it helps.
I have learned that I have to do it out loud hundreds and hundreds of times. I have learned that I can do it in about 5 days if it's a substantial stuff. And I do it out loud, and the out loud part to me is very important because it's how you rehearse. First I'm just learning words, and then I'm starting to have thoughts, and those thoughts start to percolate, and they give me different ideas.
I find that when you no longer are thinking about the dialogue as dialogue, meaning something that you had to memorize.
Yeah.
When you know it as well as you know the Pledge of Allegiance, or your favorite song that you've been singing since you were 13. There is a freedom of just starting, and it takes you wherever it is that you go.
Mom always said there's an awful lot you can tell about a person by their shoes.
I think
But most actors don't just read the script to memorize it, they do it to understand it.
Oh, hot damn, look it. There I am.
A great actor is often a deep reader, able to identify the subtext of scenes.
The notion that any of the very best actors aren't analytical and cerebral first is the biggest load of crap. I've been 2 films with Robert De Niro. I know Daniel Day-Lewis. I know Sean Penn. Those people, I guarantee you, every single time, they're like investigative reporters. It all starts analytically. It all starts from a cerebral, dramaturgical point of view. What's the piece? How does the piece function? What's the style? How does the role fit within the style?
It's not about knowing the lines. What's the scene about? What does the character want out of this scene? It's never about memorizing the lines. It's understanding what the hell you're saying.
What's the text? What's the subtext? All of those things, for me, started really early.
Look, it's me. I'm here. Deal with it. Let's move on.
But all this analysis should remain flexible so that your character can continue to feel fresh.
Yes, you have done the prep work, but what you have to be is still surprised by the text. Right. You cannot do it by rote.
Don't you think ever crossed my mind to want to know other men that I wanted to lay up somewhere and forget about my responsibilities? That I wanted someone to make me laugh so I could feel good?
With the script being deeply read and understood, an actor may begin research. To further understand their specific role, an actor will typically study the character's hobbies, occupation, and more. If they're portraying a real character, then the research becomes even more paramount. Tobey Maguire describes this process when playing Bobby Fischer.
I watched and listened to anything I could get my hands on for a long time. Firstly, to learn about him in the beginning as we were setting out to figure out what the movie was, I read a bunch and watched as much as I could find. And then later, as we were going towards making the movie, then I would just listen to him constantly or watch interviews every day.
Even the smallest bit of information about a character can be illuminating. Rebecca Hall could only watch a short tape of newscaster Christine Chubbuck before playing her.
In the 70s, often they'd shoot things in one static wide shot, so I was able to watch her all the way through and watch her responses and her body language and you know, it sounds like a short amount of stuff to go on, but actually you can intuit an awful lot about someone from first meeting, as we know, and often those intuitions are quite powerful.
If the script is based on pre-existing material, it can be a good idea for an actor to familiarize themselves with it.
If there's source material, read it. You know, especially if it's a book. Read the book, because writers tend to give you vital info about who the character is, where he came from, what he does.
Of course, there are many characters that are original to their screenplay. Then, it becomes incumbent on the actor to develop their role beyond what's on the page. This can be found by doing research into real people who are similar to the fictional character. Jennifer Connelly describes her process for Requiem for a Dream.
On her specific habits. So I spent a lot of time researching that, meeting people and talking to people who had heroin problems specifically. She was a clothing designer. I started making my own clothes and made a lot of my wardrobe from Luby.
Yeah?
Becoming a character can also require physical preparation.
I'm fine.
Embodying a character's physicality is important for reasons beyond simply needing to look like another person. It can also inform an actor's understanding of the role. Natalie Portman describes how she discovered parallels between herself and her character when preparing for Black Swan.
You don't see all of the work that goes into the smallest of gestures. So that was really interesting, and to see how they direct you through it. I mean, it is a lot of acting, which was helpful because that was the part that I was like, oh, I've at least done this before.
Jake Gyllenhaal viewed his physical preparation as integral to his understanding of his role as a boxer in Southpaw.
It's all body. Boxers are all body. By the end of training, like 5 months into training, I'd always warm up, you know, in like a hoodie and get sweat going, get warm. By the end, like the outfits I was wearing like lime green shorts and no shirt with like fluorescent yellow socks. I was painting my shoes and I was like, what is that? In the ring, your offense and your defense is working at the same time as well as your body and your mind. It's a mind game at the highest level.
For Ian McKellen, something as simple as costume and makeup can help him find his character.
On my second day of playing Gandalf, they put on the makeup. Big nose, little nose, long hair, longer hair, long beard, longer beard. And eventually they clipped away and they popped the hat on. I thought, oh, I can see him, Gandalf. I put a little voice and it fitted in with what was going on. And I stood up, I was walking like Gandalf. And from then on, it was simple.
And while physical preparation can be intense, psychological preparation can be even more demanding. Physically embodying a character is a process that can be difficult to describe, since it is so internal and nuanced.
Whatever preparation I do, it takes place on a level that I'm not entirely intellectually aware of. I do something. I find myself reading certain books or stopping in certain stores, and I think, gosh, what am I doing here? And I find out later on, oh, I think that's because of the movie I was working on or whatever. So I can't push myself around as far as that stuff is concerned. It's always been a very sort of subterranean process for me.
To find your way into somebody else's mind is a process, and the more you learn about how they lived, who they were, how they express themselves in a number of different situations trying to put yourself into their shoes can often lead you to what they were thinking under those circumstances. It's a fragile business, I find. Often it's like splitting atoms.
For some actors, it simply needs to feel intuitive, regardless of what other prep they've done.
You have all this time in rehearsals and before you actually start shooting, even on the day. And that's the time where I think about all the different possibilities, and you go through the script and you can't help but come up with ideas. And but if I ever go onto set and then consciously try to use one of those ideas that I've had, it's always really bad.
Some actors will try to draw psychological parallels between themselves and their character. David Harbour describes this process when discovering his role in Stranger Things.
He lost a daughter, and because when someone loses their child, on some level he wishes the world felt the pain that he did, and he's angry. So there's all these layers that you start to add in, right? And then it requires a lot of personal work, like what makes me angry, or where do I hide, or how do I hide?
Of course, to play a character, you don't need to be the character, you just need to understand them.
It's idiotic for an actor to think that in order to play a meth head, that he has to take crystal meth. Actors who can play a crystal meth head talk to crystal meth users and see what they do. But the truth of the matter is, once he sees that, or she sees that, what great actors understand is that we are everything. So therefore, you don't have to take crystal meth, you just surrender to the crystal meth head within you.
An actor must also preserve this preparation on set. A film set can be a stressful place, and it's easy for even the most seasoned actor to feel overwhelmed.
That's the nature of the work that makes it worth doing.
Right.
It's like you're kind of scared, but you're also exhilarated, but you're also like, will I get there?
Yes! Yes, yes, yes!
So many actors have their own methods for keeping their nerves in control. Gene Hackman describes his.
Finding a place in a chair where you can go to sleep, then examining yourself from the toes up. Where are you holding on? Not necessarily doing anything about it, just being aware of where you're holding on.
On set is where much of the interior work turns outward, and where collaboration with fellow actors is paramount. Diane Lane describes her approach to working with other actors.
It's about being able to stop and breathe and really listen and really be available to your fellow performers, to your director. When I'm working with somebody, they improve my game when they're in their skin because it gives me permission to be in mine.
On set, an actor will also typically be working closely with the director. It's here where an actor often needs to be flexible, but also vocal. Nicole Kidman explains.
The intensity of the work and the relationship requires the devotion and requires the ability to be malleable, yet to still speak up and not be sort of a doormat, but also adapt. So much of it is adapting.
Well, I guess that's a wrap.
This flexibility means being willing to throw away preconceived ideas.
It's so important to let the preparation go, because you can get stuck in this little sort of tunnel all of your own, beetling away at home and preparing who you think the character is. But the reality is you have to leave so many sort of blank spaces for other people to fill by way of the director and the other actors and the things that they think.
Don't presume to tell me what I will and will not do. You don't know me.
Well, you would have done it already.
But once an actor begins to make decisions on set, they need to commit to them. Michelle Pfeiffer describes the process of letting your own performance guide you.
With acting in film, at a certain point, then what you've already put on screen begins to dictate to you where you need to go, and then it just starts to create itself in a way.
Selena.
That's my name, Maximilians. Don't wear it out or I'll make you buy me a new one.
It's bull. I did not hit her. I did not. Oh, hi, Mark.
Acting is hard. Great acting, it's harder. The work can look different for different actors and different roles, but no matter what, it requires work.
What line?
Want to act in your own film? Get started with Studio Binder's pre-production services, which includes software for mood boards and storyboarding. And if you're an actor, use the screenwriting software to annotate your script. That's all for now. Go put on a show.
Murders! We can do you ghosts and